So as I shared before, in the short letter category, only the letter A had a slight shade to it. But in this particular category, all the letters that we'll be doing together will have some sort of a shade. Okay, so just want you guys to be mindful of that. Okay, so letter T is going to begin at the baseline with your right curve to the waistline. Okay, making sure it's flowing. Baseline to the waistline. Okay, 1 unit across. And then here, we're going to actually use this dotted line here, the first ascender line. And we're going to do a square top, pressure, and then release. A quick release. Okay, so it's going to be moving your nib over to the left. Okay, so you don't want it to look too thick, okay, throughout. So that's why we want to do it like just light and then release. Okay, so we're not going to do it really thick throughout, but the thickest part should only be at the top part. Okay, so let's do that again. So we have a right curve, lift up your pen, pressure, release, down straight along that slant line. And then we're going to finish off with another right curve to the second unit space over. Okay, then for the crossbar here, we're going to cross it in between your waistline and your first ascender line with a straight line across. So because there's not a lot of ink over here, you want to just do this straight line across without lifting your pen. Okay, let's do that again. So right curve up to the waistline, pick up your pen. You're going to do a slight pressure and then release, go straight down onto the baseline and then come back up. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So 4 different strokes. And then this particular letter is going to be 2 units wide. Okay, so it's going to take up 2 unit spaces. Okay, this straight line is going to be on your slant line. Okay, make sure you have a nice little curve here. And then this is going to be right at the half of your X height. Okay, so you want to release the pressure before you hit that half of this ascender space here. Okay, so quick release and then keep the rest of this hairline because Spencerian is a very delicate script, so we don't want even the shades to be super heavy. Let's do your T's more. Okay, so right curve, straight line, right curve. You can even do this in a drill. Right, straight line, right curve, straight line, right curve. Okay, you can connect all of those like that. And then adding in your crossbars for your T's. So what I want to point out here is the relationship with the T and the I. So the shape of the T is very similar to your I. So if you guys remember, the I looks like this, right? The I, and then we have your dot here. The T is simply just adding the shade on top and then connecting that space from the first ascender line to your waistline. But the bottom portion of that letter is really, it's the same letter form as your I. So this is also a really great way to kind of think about your letters and see which letters are like the similar shape with one another. So if you guys practice these basic strokes, then you will be building a lot of that consistency into your letter forms. Okay, so if you want to even do it, I, and then go in here, and then T, dot, and then crossbar. I also want to show you guys one more way to write your T's. So if you have a word that ends with a T like forest, this would be one way that you can end that word. Okay, you're going to start with your right curve, but this time we're going to do a right curve that is 2 units high. Okay, so going from your baseline to the first ascender line, then you're going to go straight down, add a slight shade at the baseline. Okay, this one, the stroke here was a little wavy, so let's try that again. Okay, so right curve up, straight line down, and then add a shade where the thickest part is going to be at the bottom, and then we're going to end it with an over curve. Okay, a left curve going out like this. Okay, it's a very unique kind of letter, you know, and some people might not recognize this, but it is, you know, one way where you can use the letter T variation for at the end. So I wouldn't use this like in the middle of a word, okay? So, and you can always add like crossbars to really make it more legible as a T, and that's fine. Or sometimes I'll just do a basic one through that one, through the first stroke, okay? So let's do it again. So right curve up, go straight down, thickest parts at the bottom, and then come right back up with the over curve at the end. So things to watch out for. Okay, so like I did over here, you don't want to have too much of a gap like this. Okay, you see how you see a lot of that white space above the waistline. Okay, a little bit is okay, but you do want to kind of practice enough of that arch so that it does close it up more than this example here. Okay, because you don't want it to have too much of a white gap above the waistline. Okay, so this is something to watch out for. So there is going to be a slight retracing, which is fine. And so that would be better. And then your exit stroke with your left curve to the waistline. Okay, so let's do this with the colors. And this time I'm just going to keep it to the standard proportion here. So we have your right curve, okay? And then you have your straight line. So there is some overlap here. And you're going to add a shade at the bottom. And then we're going to finish it off with your over curve stroke from the baseline to that waistline, 1 unit space apart. Okay, let's do a couple more times with the ink and then we'll move on to the next letter. Okay, so right curve. This is the first way we were doing the T. Okay. Or you can do it like this. And both of those would be acceptable. Okay, let's move on to letter D. So letter D is going to be very similar to your letter A, except we're going to be adding that same kind of like pressure release at the first ascender space. Okay, so remember for our letter A, we started a little bit to the right of that unit guide, the first slant line. Okay, we're going to do an extended over curve. Put slight pressure to make your semi-angular oval shape, okay? And then we're going to do a pressure release, straight line down, and then finish off with your undercurve stroke. Okay, you want to watch the gap up here. Remember we said we wanted that flatness, and I still see a little bit of space here, so we're going to do that again. Okay, so over curve, better. And then pressure release straight down, and then finishing it off with your right curve. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 4 strokes make up this letter, and similar to the width of the letter A. The D is also going to have 1 space, 2 space, and then 2 3/4 of a space. So this will also be 2 3/4 units wide. Okay, we're going to be making sure you hit that first ascender line going down on your slant. Okay, you want to look for that retrace for that portion of the top, and then you're adding a shade here, the first shade here, and then the second shade here. Okay, this time I am going to make it a little bit bigger size. So here's 1 unit, here's a second unit, and this is your half space. Okay. Okay, so over curve, starting at about 1/4 to the right from the first point here, and do an over curve. Come back, retrace, and come back down. Finish with the semi-angular oval with the right curve. Come back up. Then we have your straight line, but this time we're going to start up here actually with your slight shade here. Straight line down to the baseline with the thickest part, kind of like a triangular flick, like pressure release. Okay, you want to make sure to release that pressure at the midpoint of your first ascender space. And then we're going to finish this letter off with another right curve. Okay, 1 unit space apart. So there's a shade here and a shade here. Okay, and then there is a bit of that retracing on the top. Okay, let's do a couple more with the nib and ink. Okay, so feel free to say these strokes out loud. Okay, so left curve, flatten top, add shade, semi-angular oval, lift up your pen, first to center line, shade release, go down to the baseline, and then exit out. Or you can count your strokes and go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. Okay, last one. Left curve, flatten top, add shade, semi-angle, oval, flat top, release, and then a right curve. I want to show you guys a variation for lowercase d, and this particular variation I like to use either in a middle of a word or even at the end. So the beginning of this d is the same as our standard d. We're going to start here at about 1/4 from the unit space, okay, and it's going to be your extended left curve. Okay, it's hard to see up here. Let me do it again. Extended left curve. We're going to retrace the top part here, add a slight shade, come around for your semi-angular stroke. Okay, and then from here, we're actually going to now curve it on the other way. So coming back up here, we're going to make a left curve and stop it in between your first and second ascender space. Okay, let's do that again. Starting from 1/4 over to the right of this unit space. Okay, we're going to make a left curve, retrace the top, come down for another left curve, semi-angular oval, and then curve it up. So you can do it anywhere between, it doesn't have to be exactly at the half point. Some people like to do a little bit higher, or you can even just go all the way up if you want to make it very extended for the last part of this letter. Okay, so any of those finishes are acceptable. Some people might want to do it all the way up here. I like to stop my finish somewhere between the first and second ascender line. Okay, so the shade here again is going to be right here for the semi-angular oval. As you come up, you're going to finish off. So this whole stroke here, you can see it as like a lazy S curve, okay? But the top part here is going to be our left curve. Extended left curve, retrace, add a shade, semi-angular oval, and then bring it back up. So the entire width of this letter is going to be 1 unit and 3/4, 1.75, or 1 3/4 units wide. And the height of this letter is going to be anywhere from 2.5 to 3 units high. Okay, so let's use our color pen. So we have your extended left curve. Retrace another left curve coming down to your baseline, but we're adding a shade right here. We have your right curve to make that semi-angular oval shape. And then we're going to finish it off with another left curve up. So as an example, let's write the word and, okay? I'm going to show you guys what it looks like to finish the word using this particular variation. Okay, it will look something like that. So I'm going to show you guys 2 ways to write your letter P, and then the first one is going to be starting at your baseline, and this time we're going to go all the way up to our first ascender line with the similar like that T variation that we did before, okay? So from here, go all the way up to your first ascender line with a right curve. Then we're going to come down straight, add a pressure, and then release. Okay, so the thickness of this should be about here. And then as you hit about half of this first descender line and the second descender line, you're going to curve it back up, follow along very closely along the first stroke right here, the main shade. Follow that line in parallel form, come around to the waistline, make your curve in, and then come back out to the right. Okay, so let's do that again. So we're going to start here. Okay, we're going to do 1 unit space apart, but we're going to do 2 unit spaces high for your right curve. Straight down, add pressure, release, stay parallel. Make your nice oval shape, tuck it in, and then exit out. So we have your right curve, straight line, add a pressure here, parallel line, curving out, make another oval shape, tuck it in, and then we have another right curve to exit. So I would say this is about 1, 2.5 spaces wide. Okay, so let's mark that here. Starting from here, and then it's going to be about 1, 2.5. Okay, I'll put it here, 2.5. Okay, this is not going to go all the way down to your baseline, but we are going to aim it, it should be a little bit shorter. We are going to aim it at about the half of your second descender space. Okay, so ready, right curve, straight line, add pressure, come back up, oval, and then exit. Okay, this is a little better because it's more along that half. So the shade here should, this one went a little bit higher, but you should start beginning to add pressure as you pass below the baseline. Okay, so 1, 2, start adding pressure, release pressure, parallel, come around, and then do your right curve to exit. Okay, let's take a look at another way to write your P. Okay, we're going to do the same. First stroke is going to be your right curve from your baseline to the first ascender line, but this time we're going to go straight down while you go hairline and then gradually add pressure until the thickest part is along that bottom. Okay, and this one we're going to stop it at the same place, half of your second descender space. And then we're going to do an over curve, straight line, and then an under curve. Okay, I have to make this more roundedness here. Okay, you notice how this is more pointed. Okay, so that was not good, but here is better because it has a little bit more of a softer curve. Okay, so we go 1, 2, then lift up your pen, start at the baseline, over curve, straight line, under curve. Okay, better. So you're going to start the gradual adding pressure from right below the baseline until half of that second descender space. Okay, this should be on your slant line. And the only thing that's going to be shaded is going to be at the bottom of your P. So the total width of this particular version of P is going to be 3 units wide. And what I want you guys to notice here is that this form right here, the over curve to the straight line to the under curve, is the same as our letter N. Okay, so let's write the letter N next to it so you guys can see it. Okay, N is your over curve, straight line, over curve, straight line to your under curve. Okay, so you see this part of the N is found in your P. Okay. So if I were to just draw a line here, the straight line through the slant line, and then gradually add pressure, okay, and if this entrance was just an under curve, that's where we see our P. Okay, so let's draw in those strokes using our colors. Okay, so we have 1, and then we have our straight line. 2, stop right here at the middle of your second descender space. And then we have 3, round it down straight to the baseline, and then we're going to finish off with another right curve. Okay, and the only place where we're going to add a shade to this letter is going to be down here for this variation, and then the first variation here that we did, we're going to be adding pressure like right along this section. So this one's a little too close to the baseline, but I would say right below, right here is where I want to aim to add a little bit of pressure release before I come back up to the X height. Okay, we're now ready to move on to the last letter in this group, which is the letter Q. For letter Q, it's the same start as your letter A. So we have your left curve at about 1 3/4 width apart. Come back around, semi-angular oval. And then this time we're going to go all the way down to about the half point between your first descender and the second descender space. Adding a slight pressure here, curving it back up in a parallel motion, and we're actually going to end it 1 unit width apart. Okay, so we're going to come around, come up, and then move it over, like curve it over to your right. Okay, so it's kind of like a straight line that transitions to a left curve. Okay, so let's do that again. So starting from here, you have your left curve, retrace, semi-angular oval, come back at the point, straight line down, add pressure halfway to your descender space, Okay, keep it parallel straight, and then we're gonna do another left curve. Okay, this overturn stroke. So we're gonna start here. Okay, we're gonna do a left curve, add pressure, semi-angular oval, come down, add pressure, stay straight, and then curve over until you hit that edge of this unit space right here. Okay, again, left curve, retrace, add pressure, semi-angle, angular oval, come down straight, add pressure, keep it straight, and then curve it out to the right. Okay, this one, you see how it comes to a more narrow angle here? I like this one better. You want to have a little bit more of a roundedness at the bottom. Okay, so it's going to go from down, add pressure, and then go straight up with a nice curve. So it's going to be straight for a little bit, and then we're going to make that left curve. Okay, so let's count our strokes this time. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. I would say about 6. And this one is a tad longer, but I'm generally aiming for in between, so it's not going to be fully extended like our other letters, but the P anywhere, I would say, just make sure you pass this first descender line and not go super close to the last line. Okay, so if you want to do it even a little bit shorter, I think that's totally fine. Okay, something like that. So probably this one is a bit better because it's more along that half point. Okay, so let's do it with our pen. Okay, so we have our 1 3/4 extended left curve. Okay, we're going to do another left curve. We're coming down to our baseline with an added pressure up here. Then we have our transitioning to our right curve, come back up, and then we're going to go all the way down, right along that slant before we come back up straight. And then we're going to transition into our left curve. Okay, so that's pretty much like the flow of what we're doing here. So if you can envision these basic strokes as you're writing these letters, it's really going to help you to make like the right shapes for these letters. Okay, so the width of this Q should be 1, 2, 3 units wide. Okay, we're gonna add a shade. I forgot to mark this before, but we're adding a shade right about here. Okay, and then a shade on this part of your Q. Okay, so we're going to start a little bit like this would be 1/4 apart, right? Of this of this unit space. Okay, so the total width for the first stroke is going to be 1 3/4. Okay, so just a tad shy of 2 units. Okay, extend it, over curve. Then come down to your baseline, make a sharp turn up, go straight down along the slant line, add pressure release, and make sure you are parallel. So I should see even spacing here. And then finish off with your left curve. Okay, so this is on slant. And then this part should also be on slant. Okay, another way I personally like to do my Qs is just to change the bottom of the Q to add a loop. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. We're going to start the letter the same way that we did for this version. Okay, starting from this point, extended left curve. Here's our extended left curve. come down, add pressure, release, semi-angular oval. And then from here, I'm going to go straight down my slant, add a pressure release, make a loop to the baseline, and then we're going to make another right curve to exit. Okay, I think I have space to do one more time here. Okay, so extend it, left curve, retrace, add pressure, release with a semi-angular oval here. Okay, come down, add pressure, release with a nice oval loop shape here, and then do your right curve. So when I have a word with like multiple cues or even just different cues throughout the piece, I'll use both this version or this version. And so you can try both and see which one you like. Okay, so that makes up the semi-extended letters. And now we're going to move on to our last category, which is our extended and loop letters.